mis amigos. This is Chip from The Real Dirt, not today's dirt. I have my good friend Ted Mateja, and we're speaking Spanglish, coming live from Mexico. Say hey, Ted.
Hola, everyone. And hola to you, Chip. Always good to hear your voice. Always enjoy a good conversation with you.
Well, today's your birthday, right?
Yeah, but I started celebrating earlier because I figured I got the whole month down here by myself, so I might as well just celebrate the whole month.
Well, happy birthday, Ted.
Thank you, Chip. Always means a lot coming from you, buddy.
So Ted is down in Mexico at his house down there. He's decided to wade out the coronavirus a worldwide quarantine in Mexico. He's living a luxurious life. He's on the beach. He's kite surfing every day. He's fishing. He's looking at the waves. I mean, wow, you could it'd be hard to pass the time better any other way.
No, man, and since things are getting so detrimental in the world today, I went ahead and started sprouting marijuana seeds just in case it got really serious.
Yeah,
Planted a garden and then started planting seeds just in the event that I need to be sustainable for a little while.
Oh, sweet, man. Oh, that's great. Well,
always ironic when an American is growing weed in Mexico, right?
What type of weed are you smoking down there?
Shit, whatever you can get, really. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's good weed everywhere, and I've said this about the world. America does have the best weed on the whole planet, and that's not to say that we're American.
Could you say that again?
I said America. Americans have the best weed on the whole planet. There's no doubt about that. Traveled 52 countries to find it. It's infrastructure, though. We have money behind it. There's development. There's capitalism going into it. So as that industry catches up later and all these other countries come on board, I'm quite sure they'll be able to produce cannabis on the same level as we are. It's all about infrastructure and dollars and care that you can put into the cultivation process, right?
Yeah, there's culture that has to happen too, for sure. You know, people have to know how to grow it and harvest it and what seeds to plant and what's actually good and what's not good. I mean, it's more than just technology and seeds.
I will agree with you, but I will say this, Chef, and this is something that I hold dearly is when it comes to pot's not the most difficult thing to grow, and I don't want to overstate that. So I'll take the words out of context. But like 95% plus of cannabis taste and final product is about harvesting, right? It's how you harvest this product. Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. Even in Mexico, they've grown weed for years, hundreds of years. It's the harvesting and the curing process where it starts to differentiate itself from the other cannabis in the world. You lose so much integrity in your cannabis and harvest, right?
I tell you, if there's one thing that I've gotten out of this podcast is I've had multiple people come up to me over the past few years and said something like, man, I took your advice, or you're totally right, or I'm glad you said this, or I'm glad you recognize that harvest is the most crucial part of growing. And people don't put enough time on it, and it's ruined right at that last second. I mean, I've had people come up to me and say, oh, my weed is so much better because I harvest it properly. After talking to you talking to a guest about it, or listening to your show, or doing some investigation because you mentioned it, like, man, that makes me feel good. That means I'm making better weed in the world without having to do much.
Yeah, I know. You're 100% correct. Everything's about harvest. You know, I'll say this, and I guess statute of limitations to get me in my company in Colorado forever, and I brought back some land raised strains probably 7-8 years ago, and I ended up growing them in my indoor garden. Ironically, I started 20 seeds, and all of them were females, which was ironic out of the deal. But they were some of my heaviest producers I have ever produced, and I'm talking beautiful ganja, beautiful, mega hitting ganja, testing at 18 to 25% on the regular. I just grew it under the right conditions that needed to be and harvested it in a way. So I'm a big fan of like landrace genetics, and if you
Oh
can
man,
do them
and you get the
correctly, I mean, it's
you
amazing.
select the right land race, and then you cross it in with some other modern stuff, and you can really get some great vigor, great growth patterns, true hybrid vigor. I mean, we have a handful of land race hybrids in the old seed stable these days. But yeah, there's something there. There's also, man, land races are land races. You know, they're not like our modern weed.
No, no, not at all. Not like our modern stuff that's out there at all. But it's always good to come back to where you came from, right? And start looking at some of these land rates. One thing I never had the time to do was the breed. I've always been in the commercial industry where you're just trying to pound out agriculture and weight and volume, and never had the time to crossbreed some of these genetics. I would have loved to, or loved to give them to some individuals that had the time that were doing crossbred genetics. 'Cause I had some really nice hitters out of South America, Mexico that I cultivated up in the States that I was really impressed with when you put them in a good indoor environment or greenhouse environment, that they came along well.
Oh yeah, man. I've got some Panama crosses and some Angolas and some Thais and some Colombians and some Mexicans. We got a bunch of crosses and stuff. I'm actually looking forward to planting it out this year. We're going to use them, all of our land race hybrids, as dry farming. And so on a chunk of the ranch here, we're going to dry farm, and we're going to use those land race strains to do it.
Elaborate on that dry farming. I'm not
Well,
catching with you on
so
that one.
it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, but
Okay,
basically it means that that you're primarily relying on just the natural rainfall or water table to irrigate your cannabis, right? Or your whatever crop. Now, different crops have different techniques. Some people are purist about it. The way we're going to do it is we're going to plant out the seeds directly into the ground. We're going to give them as much water we can in the early part of their life. And then,
correct.
so we're going to run irrigation, everything, but it's all overflow for us. So we're kind of tapped out on our water, or as much water as we want to actually feed the rest of all of the cannabis gardens we got, because we've got another couple of acres that we're irrigating daily, right? Um, and this way, the when you plant them out from seed like that, the tap root like goes super deep. The root system becomes huge, and you start to like suck out the water of the field. Right. The plants might not get as big, their color might be different, but you don't have to irrigate. You don't fertilize. It's really I mean, it's how all of the like most of the, land raised cannabis has always been grown. Right. No irrigation, no fertilization, just under, the natural rain cycle or natural water table.
Well, that's your strongest plants, right? I mean, when they say weed's a weed, it is a weed. It will grow. It's not the most difficult thing in
Well,
the grow.
yeah.
To get good
Clones don't
quality
do so
weed
well.
is.
Clones don't do
No,
so well dry
no,
farm.
they
I mean,
don't.
you can,
No, they
it
don't.
can be done, but like we're choosing these land race ones specifically so we can, we feel like that's the one of they're drought tolerant, they're heat resistant, and you know, and so yeah, we're
That's
planning on
got to be
planting
really.
like
That,
5 or 6 acres
that has
like
to be
that.
really good. That has to be really good with where you're at in Oklahoma and that southern Oklahoma, Texas region.
Mm-hmm.
The you're going to need a more vigorous land raised strain. It's hot, man. It's hot,
Oh,
humid, and
fucking windy, hot, like,
yeah,
right. It gets all of it
it's
here.
fucking hell for you to go outside.
Wind's blowing at 25 knots today, as a matter of fact. Uh, yeah, it's definitely a difficult environment growing outdoors here in Oklahoma, but honestly, the conditions are very similar to southern Humboldt most of the flowering time of the year, and the fall seemed to go on forever. I mean, all the way to Thanksgiving, and we had 90-degree days last week. So I'm For Oklahoma, we're doing a lot of stuff for extraction, day neutral flowering cannabis, and land race hybrids are a lot of the stuff we're going to grow. We're going to grow a bunch of clones too, outdoors and in greenhouses and whatnot. But for the most part, it's going to be uh, day neutral flowering cannabis, i.e., auto flowers, and some landrace hybrids we got.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see what's going on in the world and how cannabis is evolving in such a way. Back in the day, I would never think about just throwing a whole bunch of outdoor in somewhere like Oklahoma and thinking I could get high quality product.
Yeah,
It's not
totally.
saying against the skills of growing. It's just can the genetics handle it, right?
Well, I mean, and
And
you have to test
marijuana
it,
is,
man. You have to test it. Last year, we
yeah,
planted out like 10 or 15 things. Two things really, really stood out, man. And so those are the clones that we're going to put out heavy next year. And the donkey butter and the Gills Nils did great outside. The purple punch did phenomenal in the greenhouses. So the purple punch didn't do so good in the full outdoors, though. It turned brown and just didn't have a great taste. So you just got to trial and error it, man. You got to plant that shit out and see what happens.
100% trial and error. I believe in that. Even some of what I'm going to do with a couple of strains down here, it's highly illegal for me to do this in Mexico. That's highly illegal.
No, it's
But I was like,
medicinal. No, it's totally medicinal. It's fine.
yeah, well, of course. I mean, and granted, Mexico's legal now, right? They are
Mm-hmm.
legal. There is this recreational bill, but just because it says that in its constitution, and this is only recently this has happened in the past 3 months, it's kind of like early day cannabis in Colorado, where the police weren't quite aware of the laws that were around, right? I mean, for a while, people were
Right.
busting people in
Oh yeah,
Colorado, and,
man.
and they didn't know, and you would sue and you would win, right? Because they didn't educate the law enforcement on it. And that's kind of what we have here. They're not educated up on the current development and law. But I plan to grow a couple of strains. I'm going to grow them low, kind of make them really viney so I can keep them where they're not, crawling over a 10-foot fence, per se. and see. I was like, we're going to play with this a little bit and see what happens. If anything, I always can chop one down, but that's not an option.
Well, you got to chop it down eventually, Ted.
Well, my life cycle here is a continual 12-12 yearly. I think max is 13 and a half hours. Max 13 and a half hours of
Oh, you could.
daylight. And peak season, and the lowest is like 11 hours and
So you could
20
flower
minutes or
most
something.
clones
So
there all year long.
I get flower out all year round. Yeah, if you had a
Yeah.
good greenhouse with some offset lighting, you want to do commercial, not a problem. You
Just
could have,
looking at you
you know,
automatically going to commercial.
yeah. Well, I mean, that's how you and I think. I'm like, how much can we produce, right? It's a commodity. Let's grow it.
Commodity, absolutely. So, yeah, just to catch you guys up, I'm sitting here talking to Ted Mateja. Ted is a founder of Atlas Cannabis. They're an international cannabis company. They're involved in licensing all over the country, from Denmark to Greece to Colombia to the old USA. And the reason I called Ted up today was one, because it was birthday. Happy birthday! And but I wanted to talk about, like, what's going on with cannabis internationally, since we have this current coronavirus that we're dealing with, and how he thinks it's affecting us right now, and how he thinks it's going to affect us in the future. One of the things that's come up is cannabis is essential now. Let's talk about that.
Man, isn't that an interesting subject on its own?
Yeah, no
It's
shit,
really,
dude.
God, we've been waiting years for that to happen. And one, just to give props to the to the environment right now globally, it's a shitty situation what we have going on, all over the world with this COVID-19 and whatnot. But it's really promising for cannabis people to see in the United States what are we, like 33, 36 states or something that are medically legal.
Man,
And I could
so
I could
many.
be shooting. I could be wrong by a couple, but that doesn't matter. But more story is all these states that are legal medically are deeming cannabis essential. It's essential as guns, as essential as alcohol, as essential as the damn grocery store being open. And that is a very, very promising thing in today's environment. If we would have talked about this 15 years ago, we would laugh and be like, that would never be
Yeah,
legal.
totally, totally. We would have said it needed to be.
Yeah, of
But you know,
course.
in Denver, a couple of days ago, they issued a stay at home warning, and listed the non-essential businesses, and recreational cannabis facilities and liquor stores weren't included on the initial list. Man, within just a few hours, there was a reissuing of the list, and the first thing it said was, well, of course, recreational cannabis shops as well as liquor stores can remain open.
Oh, for sure. Hey, I moved most of my money in the stock market just over to the liquor sales, to the liquor distributors, InBev, Southern Glacier. Hey, liquor sales are up 220% right now. That's a fact. I make that number up. That's a fact. So marijuana in areas that are solid and stable are doing quite well, which is good, which is very promising for the industry. And what else are you going to do? You're quarantined at home. There's nothing to do. You're either going to drink or you're going to smoke some weed all day because there's
Yeah.
nothing to do. And the humans, we're not meant to just sit down all day long. Some people are. So I agree. Some people are, but I'm not. And most people I know aren't. We have to keep moving. So might as well do something with a day and just stay stoned and forget about it.
So it's how has the virus affected other cannabis operations throughout the world? Have you talked to anyone with any of your other contacts?
Yeah, I mean, well, you and I are on a project in Georgia. That's one that's getting stalled, but we can get into that later. In the United States, we're more established with policy medically, per se. But
Hmm.
we have to walk away from recreational in this environment, right? Because it wouldn't be politically correct to say recreational. We should all be going out to the store smoking weed. I agree we should, but whatever. Medically, it's stopped. Globally, it's stopped. Everything is based around this coronavirus, and I don't think 2020 was a very critical year for myself in cannabis because I thought there was going to be a lot of policy to pass. It was polling heavily. This isn't just in the states; this is internationally. But we're on a stop right now with the COVID-19. We're
Oh, it's
100%.
full
There's
stop.
nothing going to happen.
It's going to
Good.
be topsy turvy in the marketplace too, because tourism is a huge portion of the Colorado and California, Oregon and Washington legal cannabis business, and there is no tourism going on right now. So, I mean, I'm not sure what the
Oh, for
current
sure.
fact is, but in Colorado several years ago, it was considered almost half, 50% of the sales were tourist sales. So, man, without those guys going 50%, dude, there's just going to be immediately this huge overproduction for all of these shops that had developed retail organizations and then a big huge grow to supply them. So, those guys, they're going to like be doing 50% less business at their retail stores. They're going to have all this weed. They're not normally used to like wholesaling weed, but like tons of people are. And then the wholesalers, they're still going to have their weed. So, man, the market's fixing to be flooded. The price in Colorado's already dropped like a chunk. And just the past few weeks, uh, it's perceived that business is really good right now, but I think overall it might not be so, man. And it's just what's gonna happen when it all catches up, when it floods.
Well, I'm a big. I like to think that I have a great understanding of what that was because there was a time back in the day where everything was illicit, and I remember the 2008, 2009. When we had the recession and black market, the black market cannabis was some of the highest profit margin you could ever make during those years. And I was originally thinking that that would cause the same type of situation during COVID-19. But to be honest with you, you look at the tourism. What about, like, you look up in northern Humboldt in your old area. What about people coming to trim, coming to work, coming to harvest? There's no mobility right now.
Labor is
It's
hard right now. It is hard.
it's going to hurt. And the black market controls, as much as I don't like to say this out loud, but it's true. The black market dictates price of the legal market. So I think, yeah, the legal market's going to have a gut of overproduction, but I don't think it's going to hurt them on sales. I don't.
Well, I mean, currently it's not, but I don't know, man. We'll see. We'll see. In the states that don't have recreational, their sales are going up, right? Because they're not reliant on on a tourist market. But it's already prices
Absolutely.
are overall wholesale prices in Colorado have dropped in just the past few weeks, and it was rapid drop as well.
And that's
They're
on the
down to
legal market, correct?
legal market. Yep. Hey, I
Yeah,
will
I
tell you
mean,
this, and people aren't gonna like stop smoking weed. So private market sales to places like Indiana and Georgia and all the states that don't have access to legal medicine, they're all gonna like ramp up. Oh
their
yeah.
prices are going to go up.
Well, it seems the
I'll only
consumer
say
prices have still paying the same as they have for 30 years, man, on the consumer end, right? It's like hardly changed at all. It's all the middleman and people transporting it, growing it that are making the money.
that's a whole nother podcast alone. I could go on a
totally.
wind up
Oh,
like that.
right.
I could go off
Absolutely.
the rails on a
Sales structures of private cannabis market.
Yeah,
Right.
like the guys that got fucked in that deal were people like you and me, the cultivators.
Absolutely. The guy growing the
Period.
grain, he ain't getting shit. The guy who's reselling the cereal at the grocery store, he's getting paid. Right. And all he has to do is buy it and resell it.
I remember back in the day, especially like, when the market started dropping, I would sell a lot of a lot of wholesale black market stuff, and I'd always drop my prices down. My margin, I knew what I needed to make. I know that. And I was like, all right, you should pass this down to the consumer. They only do it for so far. When you get to the middleman, the guy that's distributing eighths, quarters, ounces, he or she don't give a shit.
$100 quarters, $60 eighths.
Yep.
Right? It's how
all day long.
World.
And that's why I'm a big fan of the recreational market getting illegal, because, and this is a big thing that scared me, back in 2012, 2013. I truly thought the recreational market was going to make this product more expensive for people. I was like, man, by the time we tax it, a goddamn eighth's going to cost us $100. No, the legal market has been very good for cannabis consumers. I mean, you can buy an eighth on the street for $35-$40. You can buy an eighth in the store, $35-$40. Yes, you can get it cheaper, you can get it more expensive, but just general. But I can walk into a store and I can get 100 different types of there's varieties, right? It gives you an option. Yeah. And when you're thinking about sales into the consumer, if you take me into a store and tell me I need to spend $1,000 on this item, but I've got 5 other items, I can spend $900, $1,100, $1,200, $800. I'm always going to go to the most. It gives you options. It makes retail experience. It becomes shopping. It's fun. You end up spending more money because you have options.
Oh yeah, me too, man. Me too. Same way.
And I always love supporting stores.
One of those.
Of course. Kind of like I like to come out with like a Skittles pack every time I go in the store. I'm like, well, shit, this is amazing.
Yeah, totally. It's it's changing like that all over though, man. I mean, Alabama, Virginia, West Virginia, like everybody is hopping on some type of medical cannabis operation, man. It's fixing to be everywhere.
It's moving along very well. I mean, it's solid. It's really. I don't want to say it's shitty for marijuana business right now for getting policy passed, during the current environment right now. But it's really positive to look at cannabis from a distance and say, we're doing this finally right. We're setting this up correctly. And I always take pride into going into new places to say, I'm not. I don't want to. The way I tell people, I'm not financially motivated. Yes, I want to make money. Yes, there's money that's going to come. First off, we need to set this industry up correctly with the proper rules, proper regulations, proper environment, and then we'll all make money, but it'll be benefit for the society of people. We've been fighting a very long time for this. You know as much as anybody.
Yeah, man, preach on, dude. That's true though. Is the get rid of the greed and just start growing the weed, and things will work out.
Absolutely, absolutely. How's Oklahoma's environment right now?
Well, a bunch of places have shut down because of the coronavirus. My wife's dispensary, she shut that down. She kept the clone nursery going. We just have somebody that goes in there one day a week and takes care of everything. So that's still happening. We got a pretty good sized garden plan for the year, and our sales at the grocery stores have been holding pretty steady. So we see that like people are still smoking tons of weed. The market's not like full yet. It's not flooded yet. There's still room for people to grow and put it together. I mean, and we'll see what happens with the fallout from this coronavirus. But man, as far as I know, man, most unemployment people that are unemployed, they smoke more weed.
Utilize this time to get closer to your family, get your own personal situations under
Absolutely.
order, right?
Absolutely.
Use this time to self-reflect on you.
Yep.
This is a once in a lifetime
shit.
opportunity. I make it sound like it's good, but you know what I mean. Like, use this time to reflect. We're humans.
Life gives you lemons.
We're humans
Make
to survive
lemonade.
anything. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. We're humans, man. We're survivors. We're gonna get through this. We don't know what it's gonna be. Man, you know me. I love talking to people, especially older generations. I love turning people that's against cannabis and just educating them and showing, we're not a bunch of weed hippies around here. We're actually business people. We're like-minded. We want something that's positive for the world. Nobody's ever seen a situation like this. Some of my biggest investors, they're in their 80s and late 70s, 80s, early 90s, and I lean to them for life advice that I haven't seen. And you want to understand, and nobody's ever seen this. We don't know what's going to come of this situation that we're in.
No, we just have to keep our eyes open for the right opportunity for all of us to scale our businesses, whichever scale up or scale down, whichever is good for you, and just have a little compassion in our hearts about the people we know around us.
No, that's the biggest thing, man. You're right. When we're scaling up, we're scaling down, but this is time as a society, especially as a country, that we still love each other and be like, hey, how can I help you? Can you help me? And try to help each other survive and be successful when we come out of this correctly. Take all the hate away from the world, right? There's too much of it as it is.
Dude, I agree, man. I agree. It's a small world, man. It's a small world. Well, Ted, it's been good chatting with you from Mexico. I'm glad we got to speak to you on your birthday. This is the birthday episode of Ted Mateja. Ted, is there you got any parting advice for cannabis entrepreneurs out there here for the rest of 2020?
Yeah, I have a bunch of good advice if COVID-19 didn't happen. More story is, man, keep pushing. I came from a situation where people didn't like cannabis and was always against me. And as you said, Chip, we've known each other for a long time. We're pioneers, and we need future pioneers in this industry to keep this thing pushing across, get it across the finish line as an industry in a sustainable and very productive manner that's good not only for the society, but economics has to play a role in it because we know that the world doesn't work without money. So creating an environment where we're sustainable economically and socially is huge in this industry.
Well, thanks again for joining me, Ted. And if you like this episode and want to download this or others, check us out on therealdirt.com or look for us on podcast at the iTunes, The Real Dirt Podcast. Subscribe, please. Check us out on Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff. Comment, follow back, say what's up, give us some ideas, reach out anytime you're in the area. Definitely check out Cultivate Colorado if you're in Denver, Cultivate OKC if you're down here in Oklahoma City. And then there's Baker's Medicinal, Baker's Clone Nursery. providing all your great genetics. So, yeah, if you're in the area, stop by and say hi. Otherwise, roll the largest joint up you can and listen to the next episode of The Real Deal.
Perfect,
All
Chef.
right.
Love you, brother.